Okay, so after those scenes, we then cut to Tidmouth Sheds, where, of course, after racing Birdie, Thomas, of course, is having a hard time trying to wake up. And you gotta admit that this is pretty funny. Yeah, that's something else with, like, the series as of now. Like, one thing about the writing that I also love is how they even improved on comedy. And this one particular scene is pretty funny, where, like, they do make this little reference to Thomas and Gordon, like the original Thomas and Gordon story, where Thomas is in the sheds and, he's having a hard time waking up and, his fire's too low. And yeah, it's funny, at one point, Percy actually says, "Wake up, lazy bones." Yeah, in fact, that's the only line Percy gets in this movie. Yeah, in fact, that's just one other thing. The other engines, main engines, or the steam team per se, they're not in the movie that much. But that's fine, because we actually kinda, like in Blue Mountain Mystery, per se. But hey, I'm just glad, that we do get some focus off of them for a while. So, yeah, James, Percy, and Henry are trying to wake Thomas up, but Thomas, unlike in the Thomas and Gordon, episode, even though they did reference that in The Adventure Begins as well, but, oh great, that's aside the point. Yeah, unlike in the original story, Thomas actually, is being a lazy bum, where he's like, let him wait. As later, he has to, act as the station pilot for Gordon's coaches. And then we cut to Knapford Station with Gordon. Oh my god, yeah, I'm gonna say it too. I'll just want to get that camera in. Sorry. Alright. I am really starting to hate Gordon in this series. Yeah, you heard me. I freaking hate Gordon. No, the CGI Gordon. I mean, the classic series Gordon is always one of my favorite characters, but the reason, it's just, this incarnation of Gordon has really turned into nothing more than a pompous, unfriendly, and tank engine discriminating jerk who I really just want to club him in the head with a baseball bat like I wanted to do with James and Tale of the Brave, because, man, I mean, it was needed in The Adventure Begins, but come on, does he really have to be that mean? Like, there's a time and a place for his pompousness. I mean, it's maybe in this movie, but do you have to keep doing it all the time? Like, he acts like he freaking hates tank engines. I mean, Gordon doesn't hate tank engines, he just thinks he's better than them. I mean, he was kind to them, but there is none of that kindness, and every time Thomas is around, he's always being a frickin' asshole to him. Groaning at everyone, he's being happy or making an achievement, or laughing at him when he's making a mistake. Oh, seriously, whatever happened to that alliance they made in, the Gordon, after Down the Mine, and of course in Paint Pots and Queens, the whole united we stand, together we fall, you'll help me and I, whatever happened to that? Instead, Gordon's just become a very selfish, mean-spirited asshole. So, yeah, Thomas is not off the hook either. Like, when he does arrive, he does, come to get Gordon's coaches, and of course mocks him for being lazy, and I couldn't help but agree, but I think Gordon does have a point, as he would have to stay there, probably, that way he wouldn't have to waste steam, so that way he'd have, enough coal and water to get to other stations. But still, it doesn't excuse me. In fact, I would say this too, the both of them are idiots. Like, literally, both Thomas and Gordon are utter idiots in this. Like, of course, Gordon is, does make that whole, tender engines don't shunt. And I'm like, really, Gordon? Even after being confined to the sheds along with Henry and James, you still are too stubborn to actually do jobs you don't like, especially shunting. but then he blows it by actually, saying that's a job for silly little tank engines, and Thomas makes everything worse by actually taking this to offense. But he doesn't lose his temper. He's still being cheeky. He's like, silly little tank engines. Well, maybe, yeah. And he actually just shunts, and without thinking, and without his driver or fireman keeping control on him, Thomas just shunts Gordon's coaches away from him, and just starts running off with them. And of course, Gordon tries to chase after him as well. And I mean, when I first saw this, I'm like, you idiot! I'm referring to Thomas. But then Toby, of course, tries to warn him to stop as the signals change red. He nearly collides with Emily, and that causes all the which basically causes the whole Wild Nor'Wester to derail. But you gotta admit, it was pretty funny where, Gordon, starts shouting Thomas's name in agony, and then the signals start changing red. So, yeah. The Fat Controller... Oh, yeah, the Fat Controller does, in fact, get a big part in this movie. But we'll mention along the way. The Fat Controller, he obviously is furious with Thomas's behavior. And Thomas... Yeah, I can't say I blame the Fat Controller, as is Thomas really, not only is he cheeky, but heck, he's also pretty selfish. So selfish that he even tries lying to get himself out of trouble by blaming Gordon or Emily for his mistakes. In fact, I really think the Fat Controller should have been angry with Gordon too. Thomas should have told him what really happened, Gordon and... but sir... Gordon, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean it. Gordon insulted me. Then the Fat Controller could have just dealt with the both of them. I mean, because I wish Gordon would have gotten punished too. But instead, the blame is put on Thomas. And so, as punishment for his cheeky and arrogant behavior, he is basically banished to the construction project, well, the Harwick construction branch line project, in hopes to get Thomas to mature. And of course, Gordon starts looking all smug. He's like, I couldn't have put it better myself. And while that's going, the Fat Controller also has Thomas's branch line duties assigned to the first new character. I know the Arlesdale engines could have been new characters as well, seeing that this is the first time that they're in the TV series. They could be considered newbies, but here's our first established new character, Ryan, the purple tank engine. So yeah, this is where we're introduced to Ryan in this scene, and of course, he's going to be substituting for Thomas while Thomas is being punished. And of course, you know what, I think I'll talk about Ryan in the later scene, as, it'll just save time. So, yes. Well, that's going on. Back at the Harwick construction branch line the construction of the Harwick branch line, While Marion, of course, is digging away, she wants to play her favorite Guess What's in My Shovel game, and at first she tries it with Donald's, but Donald's too busy, so who should she turn to next than Oliver, the Pax Oliver, yeah, because I'll just say the Pax Oliver, because we're not really going to see the Great Western Engine Oliver as well as Toad in the movie that much. So yeah, Marion meets Oliver for the first time, and when Oliver introduces himself, Marion's like, wait, Oliver? You can't be Oliver! Yeah, that's another part, when she thought that the small railway engines were magical, now she starts thinking that Oliver basically made a wish with the small railway engines into becoming a excavator. So yeah, she thinks that Oliver is Oliver the Great Western Engine. Yeah. I mean, but don't worry, it's actually pretty funny. It is kind of strange, but hey, I actually enjoyed it. It's a nice, clever concept, seeing we do have two characters with the exact same name. So yeah, I mean, this will be a good way for kids not to get so confused. Seeing, well, yeah, I mean, there's two characters named Oliver. I mean, heck, they even made a wooden railway, like, merchandising, well, pack with both Olivers. Alright, so, while that's also going on, the workmen also start noticing that the ground under one of the lines is starting to become unstable. And at one point, Donald, of course, like, he nearly has, like, an accident until, like, the workmen start flagging him down. And like, some inspectors come and start realizing that they can't, have, like, the branch line there. So, of course, they reroute the track, and that later at Arlsborough Junction, Mike, Rex, and Bert, of course, are at work with the ballast until Thomas shows up, and even after all that, he's still whining of how, like, Gordon, like, caused the accident, or I mean, caused him to get punished, when clearly it is his fault. And of course, he is but he's also angry, that the fact that the Fat Controller, yeah, that's actually one of the major the main storyline is how, rather than Thomas being cheeky, because we do get bits of it only in the middle part, but, like, Thomas, like, actually thinks that, like, he actually starts to feel that the Fat Controller, like, Thomas is losing his favor, and that Ryan will now be, gaining his favor now, and may end up replacing him. And, I think I will talk about Ryan in this scene. Yeah, because I was going to talk about him in the later scene with Annie and Clarabelle, but, yeah, I think I will talk about Ryan. I actually do like the concept of this character. Like, really. Now, when Ryan was first announced, he was originally going to be, like, overconfident and dismissive, and I guess somewhat arrogant, too, but he's not arrogant. No, he's actually a very nice guy. I mean, we only just get a bit of, like, overconfidence and dismissiveness. But that's alright. I mean, heck, it's better than having a big arrogant jerk like Gordon, James, or heck, even Samson. My god, I never even liked Samson. So, yeah. Like, I do think, the idea for Ryan is good. In fact, I know what you're going to be saying. This, of course, feels a lot like The Great Discovery all over again. At first I was thinking to myself that, but after watching this movie, I actually started feeling that this is better than The Great Discovery. Like, this is Great Discovery done right. I know Toon Critic Y2K, like, felt it was better. No, obviously it wasn't, because that was during the time Sharon Miller was writer. And let's face it, Sharon Miller, none of the stuff she writes makes any sense. Like, in Great Discovery, when Stanley was introduced, they said that Stanley was bigger and stronger than Thomas, when clearly that isn't very accurate. As, what was it, a Hudson Clark he was based off of? Yeah, like, that engine Stanley's based off of is probably just as equal with an E2, like Thomas. Like, the actual engine Ryan's based off of a GNR N2 is obviously bigger, stronger, and a lot more efficient than an E2 class like Thomas. So yeah, I think this is done right. And there's more hints I'll just mention later of why this is better than, the Thomas and Stanley arc from Great Discovery. Yeah, like... Oh, and something else about Ryan, I'll just mention it now. Did I also mention that Ryan in this film is voiced by none other than Academy Award-winning actor Eddie Redmayne? No? I mean, when I first heard, I was like, wait, they actually got celebrities to do this? Because, yeah, Olivia Colman and Eddie Redmayne aren't the only celebrities in this film. As we'll see later, they actually got Eddie Redmayne, the guy best known for, playing Stephen Hawking in The Theory of Everything, Marius in the 2012 version of Les Mis, he was also in that crappy Jupiter Ascending movie, yeah. and the guy who just won the Oscars last year, like, he, he is in Thomas the Tank Engine. Who would have thought? In fact, Eddie Redmayne said that he grew up with the series too. Alright, so yes, while Thomas is complaining about, his punishments of small railway engines and how Gordon, thinks that's it, of course, keeps dismissing tank engines, the small engines cheer him up by singing a song. Yeah, we actually get a song in this film. A song that's actually sung by characters rather than just being a musical interlude. Like, it's actually an original song sung by by the actual characters. That song being Never Overlook a Little Engine. And and don't get me wrong, I think this song is actually very, awesome. To be honest, I kind of had a thought that they could have done a remake of that song Little Engines from Season 6, but that doesn't matter anymore, because honestly, this song, I think, is... I listen to it sometimes, because it's so catchy. Like, something you'd hear, obviously, out of a Disney movie. But that's okay, because, this is actually a very fun song to listen to. And I do like, how in the intermission of the song, where, the small railway engines, are, either underwater, outer space, or on a cake, which I actually like the part with the cake, as it had the number 70 on it, which, of course, is making a reference to the 70th anniversary of the series. So, yeah, I do like the concept. Because we do see this sort of stuff in kids' movies, and it's very fun. At first, I thought that this was all promotion, but no, it's the real deal here. And I do enjoy it. And I'll just say it right now, yeah. I do love the, music arrangement by Robert and Peter Hartshorn in this movie. They've outdone themselves, but it's not just them. They actually did get a full orchestra. What was it called? The City of Prague Orchestra, was it? Excuse me for a second. I gotta look this up first. Yeah, it's best to, just, know who it is. Found it. The City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. Yeah, I was just checking on my iPhone. Excuse that noise. So, yeah, this, rather than, the simple, orchestra composition, this feels... In fact, sometimes I feel like I'm watching a Thomas movie, directed by Steven Spielberg, as this kind of feels like something you'd hear in a Steven Spielberg film. Just in my opinion, but seriously, that they do amazing in this film. But we'll talk about more of, their soundtrack later on in the film. So yeah, Never Overlook an Engine is one of the best songs I've ever heard in a Thomas special. So yeah, after Thomas's ballast wagons are loaded up, he takes them over to, the construction project. However, it's kind of strange hearing that the Arlesdale engines give him the advice, rails first, ballast after, which is very, very strange. 'Cause wouldn't it be for ballast first, then the rails and sleepers? Yeah, that's just one flaw in the script there. So, yeah. When Thomas arrives at the construction project, of course, his arrogance does come back again, where he thinks that he could show everyone just how useful he is when he sees these flatbeds loaded with, of course, rails and sleepers. And he starts shunting them, and if I were Thomas, I would have just waited for, the foreman to, give me, the directions before going off and acting like a complete idiot again. In fact, just like with the incident with Gordon, I was like, you idiot! Seriously. But then again, Thomas is known to make mistakes like this already. So yeah, Thomas shunts the flatbeds without any, without waiting for any, orders from the foreman or whatnot. Or even Donald, Douglas, and Duck, who were also there, along with Stanley and By him, I mean Samson, who I don't really care for, but... yeah, I honestly don't know why Donald Douglas and Douglas Duck and... sorry, Duck, Donald, and Douglas, couldn't, shout out to Thomas to stop, and instead it's just the workmen. Because this is one scene where Duck could have also said some more. But, yeah, I'm just saying, it's just, my thoughts as, a critic, just from my eye view. And I don't mean to whine, but I'm just saying, that's all. So, yeah, Thomas starts shunning the flatbed while the workmen are chasing after it, and it's got a funny, Thomas, stop! Especially with one workman chasing him with a shovel. Of course, Thomas, mistakes this for, of course, the workman, congratulating him, or, pleased to see him. And we do, in fact, get a reference to Down the Mine. And, of course, it gets worse, where he ends up going down the same track that Donald was almost about to have the accident, where he was about to fall into the unstable ground. This time, it's Thomas who bursts through the barrier, and then that's when Thomas realizes he's made his mistake. And, of course, the ground starts to crumble, and then all the flatbeds, with all those new rails and sleepers that cost a lot of money, start to plummet right into the ground. Or should I say, a cavern, which is the real reason why the ground is so unstable. Yeah, it basically, all of it starts plumbing down, and Thomas accidentally bumps the flatbed in front, which causes his coupling to get snagged, and he tries to pull himself to safety, but his driver and fireman jump out of the cab, and Thomas, of course, he starts, he starts, flying right down the cavern, on the rails and sleepers that he accidentally shunted there. And you gotta admit, the scene is actually both really amazingly animated and very hilarious. Well, I mean, not very hilarious, but funny. Basically, here's what happens. Thomas, he basically is hanging on the flatbeds of the rails and sleepers, and he starts, going down each of them. And I gotta say, the animation for each of them was handled very well, and for the funny part, it's funny because Thomas slides, and then they actually do a slow, he's like, no! And gee, I never thought they'd do that in Thomas the Tank Engine. And then Thomas plummets to the ground, getting, plenty of scrapes, scratches, and, filth, until he starts seeing a pirate ship at the very bottom. So, yeah, even though Thomas did screw up, he did find something amazing. Or did he? Yeah, because I'll mention later. So, yeah, here we come up to Ryan, and for an example of his overconfident and dismissive, when he tries to get Annie and Clarabelle, he, by mistake, bumps the both of them, but he didn't mean it. I mean, of course. So yeah, Ryan, of course, is in charge of the branch line, but Annie and Clarabelle are wondering why Thomas is, and that's one big plot hole. How come Annie and Clarabelle are, wondering where Thomas is, when no doubt they did witness him causing that accident, and the Fat Controller punishing him, by banishing him to the construction project, and then Ryan arriving, I'm like, what? Because Annie and Clarabelle, they were just there, in the yards. So, yeah, cutting back to, Thomas's accident where, cutting back to Thomas's accident where Duck, Rocky, and Emily, try and get him out, the Fat Controller once again is freaking pissed. Yeah, that, believe me, it's gonna be happening throughout the whole film. The Fat Controller is obviously, pissed off with Thomas at this point. And, he's, still upset, and Thomas still tries making excuses to get himself out of trouble, but the Fat Controller will obviously not have any of it. And even if Thomas tries to tell him about the pirate ship, yeah, that's actually one flaw in the Fat Controller in this. When Thomas tries to tell him about the pirate ship, of course the Fat Controller still thinks that he's still making excuses, and then orders Emily to take him to the steamworks immediately. Yeah, I know and I know that some fans were thinking. In fact, I heard that the audiences like, especially parents thought the Fat Controller was being way too hard on Thomas. I could say he is, but for these, like, the incident with Gordon's coaches and falling down the cavern, like, you can't blame him there, because Thomas is being, very, well, he is being, well, very cheeky and, well, I mean, yeah, he is doing the wrong thing, and, not really on his best behavior. Though I do admit the Fat Controller should have at least listened to him, like, but of course, that's an obviously misunderstanding. I mean, that can happen with any job where, the boss is like, but sir, you gotta understand, it wasn't like, now you listen to me, Mr. Whatever, get back to work, I am not interested in excuses, yeah. So, yeah, while Thomas, of course, is being loaded on the flatbed, there's also a this one, man standing in a small sailboat with a face on, yeah, the sailboat talks, that's actually noticing all this, and is actually on the look, and it seems like he's looking for something, but what? Oh, but I will say this, spoiler alert, that man is the villain in this movie. Yeah, it's no secret. I mean, I'm sorry if I am, but the reason I am spoiling that, because if you don't watch these scenes carefully, and you hear the music in the background, that dark and devious music, and then, you do see glimpses of, this man's attitude, then, you'll just realize that, oh, yep, he's the villain of this film. If it's not gonna take you that long to realize, we be here until, next Tuesday. So, yeah. I'll tell you about him soon, because it's best, to talk about it throughout the story. And he, along with the sailboat, who's named Skiff, they're basically observing this. So yeah, meanwhile, back at the Steamworks, Thomas, of course, is worried that the Fat Controller is starting to hate him, for all his mischief, and thinks that Ryan is going to replace him for sure. Victor assures him, that the Fat Controller will have him fixed up in no time. And even Kevin assures him, about that was an accident. But honestly, that was due to Thomas's, to Thomas's arrogance, to say. And, okay, maybe Kevin can be, I'm not a big fan of him, but at least the scene where he falls over was kind of funny, where he's like, I fell over. When Edward comes in, yeah, Edward, at one point, comes by the Steamworks announcing more news from Arlsberg of what Rocky found. And, of course, this is what I, meant when I said, or did he, when Thomas found the pirate ship, that apparently Rocky starts taking the credit for, finding the ship, rather than Thomas discovering it by accident. Yeah. I don't want this video to get too long, but hey, I'll just, upload in different parts. No big deal. So, yeah.